Final Fantasy IV was the only of the classic Final Fantasies that I didn't like when I played it growing up. But now that I revisit it, have I revised my opinion? Welcome to Intermediate New Mexico, the channel where we look at things of wonder from the perspective of faith and reason, philosophy and theology. I'm your host, Daniel Kelly, and we're looking at something, a wonder, one of these wonders of the culture that we're amongst, that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I love the Final Fantasy series, and Final Fantasy IV, when I was younger, I didn't really like it, so I've been excited to revisit it. And that's one of the things I've really liked about the Pixel remasters, revisiting games that I haven't played for quite a while. Now, Final Fantasy IV, I remember very clearly from when I was young. We had the PlayStation 1 collection that had it and Chrono Trigger together, which was really cool. And the little bit I got to play, I would always want to play Chrono Trigger, and I still think Chrono Trigger is a really amazing game. And Final Fantasy IV, I remember, it didn't really have anything that my mind latched onto. I liked the class system in Final Fantasy V. I liked in Final Fantasy II, the weird leveling up system. Final Fantasy IV doesn't really have any system, okay? And I did like that. One thing I do remember that I liked is the last dungeons, when you get to the end of the game, the monsters are really, really hard. And I'm happy to report I still really like that. I like that challenge. Now that I'm older and I have kids, I do enjoy games that have easier modes, because sometimes that's easier to play with the kids. But I still appreciate really, really hard games, and I think some of the older RPGs did that well. In playing the Pixel remasters, I realized in playing Final Fantasy IV, after playing 1, 2, and 3, that it really is a summing up of the games that have come before. And I think that's one of the reasons so many people like it so much, is because in Final Fantasy 1 and 3 have this class system, and Final Fantasy IV takes that, and you don't get to choose your class, but each character is its own class. In Final Fantasy II, they want to try out a lot of different characters that you could have, and each character dies. Well, in Final Fantasy IV, you have this big roster of characters. You have the biggest party you could have up till then, but a lot of them do die in heroic ways, like Final Fantasy II, which I think all that's really cool. They took, look, in Final Fantasy III, they started this summon system where you summon these big, powerful creatures to help you, and in Final Fantasy IV, they just take that away, which is really cool. So a lot of the things in the first 3 Final Fantasies that they'd been kind of trying to do and figuring out, in Final Fantasy IV, they really do. They take it away. So I really like that and really appreciated that. Another thing, when I replay a game, I want to try to do something that I haven't done before, especially if I've played it a lot, like most of the Final Fantasies. And this time, I wanted to try to get the optional summons that you could get from fighting monsters. I'd never done that, and I appreciate in Final Fantasy the Pixel remasters. Most are upgraded features. Take it or leave it. Don't really care too much. Don't use them too much. But the auto battling really helped, because I could have my attention mostly on something else, where I fought monsters over and over to get these optional summons. So if you've ever played Final Fantasy IV and haven't got the optional summons, I think the Pixel remaster is the way to do it. For example, I went to get the goblins. There's a place where you fight a bunch of goblins, fought them a bunch, and then the Mind Flayer went, fought until I got it. But then the last one, the summon that you get from the balloons, I did. The problem with random monster drops is the very first time I fought them, they dropped it. So I was like, oh darn, I would have got this no matter what I was doing. But so all that's cool, that I like that I'm playing back through all these classic games as part of the Pixel remaster, and that the Pixel remaster's features made some of the goals that I had in playing this through easier. So I thought that was really cool. One of the interesting things I found playing through now as a Christian that I didn't notice before when I played it when I was younger, is there's a big theme in Final Fantasy IV on prayer, and the afterlife too, which I found really interesting. Prayer is mentioned all the time. We'll pray for you, we need to pray for this, all these different things. And intercessory prayer. There's some of it that's kind of silly, like we're going to pray to the moon, which is silly. The moon it doesn't have any control over anything like that. You can pray to it all you want, but that not going to do anything. But of course, this isn't made by Christian people that would know that. But I like the focus on that we have to pray for each other. I thought that was really cool in a video game, that was one of its very strong focuses. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. For example, I think one of the most powerful things is in the end fight, how you can only win because all these different people are praying for you. And obviously the prayers of the living are very effective, but I think it would have been even more effective story-wise if a lot of these people where it says, one of the quotes from the game is, their prayers give you life, right? You're all beat up from fighting and their prayers revitalize you. And I think that's really powerful and really good. One thing that's not as good is because I think if some of them were dead, their prayers giving you life, that wording would have been even more powerful, right? Another thing that I found was interesting is this focus on the afterlife. Like, some of the people die right away, and there's this small little theme of how do you deal with death, how this person's going to a better place. Of course, it's not really described what that better place is or anything. It's just a better place, this vague better place. But I really enjoyed that in this playthrough of Final Fantasy IV. Some of the things, and it really did try to tell a better story, which I liked about Final Fantasy IV compared to the other Final Fantasies. It took this theme of the Dark Knight from Final Fantasy II that in my review I talked about Final Fantasy II, how it was so strong to have that bad character that became good, that Dark Knight trope has been used throughout the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy II did it so well. Well, in Final Fantasy IV, they take that even more, and there's this theme of redemption, and I thought that was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that quite a bit. But in that vein, one thing that I thought was not so good was they overused the trope of mind control, and I think it's very hard to tell an effective story with mind control being part of it. Oh, this bad guy was just mind controlled, it's not his fault. This bad guy was just mind controlled, it's not his fault. But that, I don't think is really, it's very hard to use mind control effectively. It's kind of like the multiverse or time travel, where usually it just takes the narrative way. No, everybody's actually not bad. There is a sense where a lot of the people that we think of as bad guys, we'll find out at the end of time, we're not bad guys, right? We're going to find that out for a lot of people. So I think mind control is a very difficult narrative beat to use effectively, because it kind of gets rid of, okay, just kidding. It's kind of like a just kidding thing. So I didn't like that a lot of the compelling bad guys and stuff were just, oh, actually they're good guys that were mind controlled. So that was a weakness. Also, I do still think it's a weakness in this that there isn't really, all the characters are very different, which is cool, but there isn't anything really cool to kind of sink your teeth into as far as character development. You level up, you get new abilities, and that's pretty much it. So that I still don't care for as much. There's one line in Final Fantasy IV that I really like and think is important. One of the guys said, because there's a big theme of sacrifice in this, right? But one of the characters says, everyone chooses death too hastily. And I think that's really profound. Sometimes for our culture, we are not, we won't risk our life for something greater, and that's bad too. But I think there is this danger in our, a constant danger to choose death too hastily, and I think Japan has really been given a grace on this in recent times. If you look at Godzilla -1, the whole theme is everyone chooses death too hastily, choose life instead. And I think even though these, both Godzilla -1, which is an awesome movie, go watch it, and this game, although they're from a very non-Christian and in that sense pagan background and worldview, I think it really is powerful to meditate on everyone chooses death too hastily. And I think it goes well with Final Fantasy IV because there's this theme of self-sacrifice, risking the good of your life for a greater good. So I think that's really cool. I found it interesting that it has these really deep themes that's trying to go through, like it talks about throws in stuff like the afterlife, hell even, and stuff, but then it has a lot of silliness, right? That like which I appreciate in the older Final Fantasies, where you talk to one of the dwarves, and the dwarf is like, I'm a nurse, and of course I'm a girl. And it's like, haha, because the dwarf has a beard. It just looks like a small dude. So it has these humorous parts. Another thing that I really like about this Final Fantasy and all the Final Fantasies is the music. I really think that classical music, a lot of people in the modern day don't really appreciate as much, or think they don't appreciate. But you can see in video game music that people kind of do like classical music, because people love video games, and many of the video games we play use really good effective classical music. Some of the best is Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, I think, but the Final Fantasies do as well, have just super powerful, soul-moving classical music. And I think one of the reasons is that classical music is more effective in video games than, say, rock lyrics or stuff like some of the Sonic games might have had, is because classical music helps you to contemplate. And I think a big part of video games is contemplation. What do I mean? Well, let's take another part of Final Fantasy IV where I really like the graphics as far as the solar system and the moon and the earth and stuff. That looks so good. When actually the graphics are not actually as good as more modern games, right? But I don't think more realistic, quote-unquote, graphics is actually always better. Why is that? Because a lot of times video games are focused on beauty, right? That's one of their things. But I think one of the effective things about video games is they're very often icons, kind of like secular icons, right? An icon is a sacred picture that helps you, opens your mind up through visuals to something greater. And I think video games can do that too. What do I mean? Let me explain it a little bit better. Is because with, let's take a horror movie. The most effective horror movies don't actually show you the monster necessarily. They hint at it and stuff, because our imagination, our mind's ability to walk into a greater reality is just unlocked by this prompt of the horror movie. And then our imagination, and even more our mind just going into that, is more effective than if they showed even a really realistic looking monster for scaring. But that's true for all kinds of beauty. And I think these pixel art games sometimes do that better than, okay, there's this ultra realistic looking video game cutscene, whatever, and that's cool and that's beautiful and that's good, and games should be beautiful. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the suggestion, the art, the icon of deeper realities is more effective to opening our minds to how cool and how amazing that reality really is. And I think you can see this really well in Final Fantasy IV in its portrayal of traveling to the moon and the solar system and all that. On that, I think it's very funny that there's 2 moons and stuff, and the geography is not anything like Earth, but there's Mars and Jupiter have those proper names. So maybe this is supposed to be Earth. It's really weird. That's just an aside, though. And what are some of the more difficult parts of Final Fantasy IV? Well, it has a lot of nonsensical, bad philosophy statements, like, there's more at stake here than justice and truth. What are you talking about? That's a quote. What are you talking about, more at stake than justice and truth? That's impossible and just silly. Or like, there's a part that, good and evil need each other to exist. That's all just poor philosophy. Also, there's some themes that are just kind of put in there that if you think about them too much, you're like, wow, that would be really bad. Like at the beginning where you're kind of evil, they have this theme of dancing girls in every town. And one of the girls, basically you are coercing her through your privilege and power into doing something that's not good. It's very silly in the game, but if you think about it, it's like, well, that's really... So I think that's one of the big minuses in the game, is stuff not thought through well enough and just not really good philosophy that says nonsensical, silly statements like, more important than justice and truth, and just because it sounds cool. And I think a lot of times that's a weakness in our modern culture storytelling, is we find lines and stuff that seem cool, and we just throw them in without thinking about them more. I really enjoyed Final Fantasy IV, the playthrough, but I feel like the later, and it did sum up a lot of the stuff, but I feel like in these simpler Final Fantasies, it really was effective to have these systems to get something to sink your teeth into for leveling up and using your brain that way, because in this, the leveling up in the characters, you didn't really have much agency over. It just happened. Now, this doesn't mean this just wasn't an intellectual game where you just attack, because one of the things I really liked is for the harder fights, and it had a lot of much harder fights, you had to use your brain and you had to figure out how we're going to beat it and stuff. And that's one of the things I really like. The final boss in this is a really tough. I remember him being really tough, and he still was, even though I'm much better at games now. I appreciate that, because you have to use your mind. You have to effectively plan out your strategy, and I really like that. One thing I really liked is it still had the miserable last dungeon from Final Fantasy III. I don't know why they thought, oh yeah, this is good, let's carry this over. But then this new thing in Final Fantasy IV is save points, which is really cool. So they were like, well, maybe that system from Final Fantasy III is too difficult. Let's put in the middle of dungeons, we can put where you could save it. That's really cool. So overall, it's a game that I enjoyed quite a bit, this playthrough. It's short. It's a good introduction to Final Fantasy and the older Final Fantasies. But I do think it's a little bit too simple still. Final Fantasy VI does the same thing much better. It's a much more enjoyable game, much fuller game, but sometimes the shortness and the simplicity is a draw. So that could be a draw for Final Fantasy IV over Final Fantasy VI. But I do think this is a classic and well worth your time if you're looking into old JRPGs. Hope that was helpful for you. You have a very good day. God bless you.